Every weekday morning began the same way. Emily, just 6 years old, would rise sleepily from bed as her mother, already dressed for work, helped her into her tiny school uniform. They lived in a modest two-room home in a quiet suburb. Both Emily's parents had full-time jobs and often left the house before 7:30 a.m. To ensure Emily got to school safely, they had arranged with the neighborhood Okada man, Uncle Sam, to drop her off and bring her back in the afternoon. It had been this way for months. He was always prompt and polite. Trustworthy, or so they believed. Uncle Sam was well known in the neighborhood. He had a broad smile, a dusty motorcycle, and a strange habit of always offering candy to the kids. Most parents liked him. He lived alone in a one-room boys' quarters not far from the main road. He wasn't married and mostly kept to himself, quiet, respectful, and always waving at the neighbors. Emily's mother once gave him a small gift for Christmas, thankful for helping with Emily. Emily's father even joked that they owed him a month's salary for always being there. But no one asked where he went before the school runs, and no one thought to follow. Emily had always been a quiet child, but lately, her silence had grown heavier. At first, her parents chalked it up to tiredness or adjusting to school. She had no visible bruises, no screams in the night, just a subtle dimming in her once bright eyes. She didn't laugh as much anymore. She flinched slightly when her mother helped her with her shoes. She no longer sat on her father's lap or played with her dolls for long. When asked how school was, she always said, "Fine." The kind of fine that whispered pain but went unnoticed in the daily rush of working-class survival. Miss Ruth was Emily's class teacher, young, kind, and observant. She noticed that Emily started arriving to school later than her classmates. She also noticed her red eyes, often as if she had cried. On more than one occasion, Emily seemed distracted, staring out the window instead of focusing. She didn't join group activities anymore and once refused to sit when asked. Miss Ruth tried to ask her about it gently, but Emily never said much. She chalked it up to nerves or home issues. But that feeling, that gut-wrenching tug, kept pulling at her. Something wasn't right. She just couldn't prove it yet. One Saturday, Emily's mother was doing laundry when Emily's cousin came over to play. While playing house with dolls, Emily casually told her cousin not to trust uncles who give sweets. The cousin laughed and told Emily's mother later, who brushed it off as childish talk. "Kids these days, always mimicking cartoons," she said with a chuckle. That night, Emily had a nightmare and wet the bed, something she hadn't done in years. Emily's mother scolded her without thinking. None of it made sense then. The truth was still buried, festering beneath smiles, candy wrappers, and daily routines. The storm was just one phone call away. One morning, Emily's mother handed over her daughter to the Okada man with a smile and a word of thanks. He was a familiar face in the neighborhood, reliable, polite, and always on time. It never occurred to her to suspect him. After all, both she and her husband left for work early, and he helped them keep their routine intact. Little did she know, the very person she trusted was betraying that trust in the most horrific way. Sometimes, the greatest threats hide behind the mask of routine. Emily had stopped humming during breakfast. She hardly touched her food, and she clung to her teddy bear more than ever. At night, she'd wake up crying, only to say she had a bad dream. Her mother thought she was adjusting to school life. Her father was too busy juggling work to notice. But Emily's eyes, those once bright eyes, were fading into fear. She tried to speak but couldn't find the words. She had been warned. So she kept it all in, praying someone would notice the storm inside her. Each morning, instead of heading straight to school, the Okada man took a detour to his house. There, behind closed doors, Emily's innocence was destroyed piece by piece. He threatened her with words a child should never hear, "Tell anyone, and I'll hurt your parents." Her tiny body trembled as she endured his evil, while screaming, "Please stop. You are hurting me," but no one could hear her tiny voice. Then he wiped her tears and rode the remaining distance to school. To the outside world, she was just another child being dropped off. But inside, she was shattered. Miss Ruth, her school teacher, had begun to notice something strange. Emily arrived late every morning, and she was always crying. At first, Miss Ruth assumed it was separation anxiety. She tried comforting her, but the tears never stopped. Emily flinched at sudden movements and didn't play with the other children anymore. One morning, after seeing Emily curled up by her desk, Miss Ruth decided to act. She took her aside, gave her a sweet, and whispered gently, "What's wrong, my dear?" What Emily whispered back made her blood run cold. With her heart pounding, Miss Ruth picked up the phone and dialed Emily's mother. "Please come to school immediately," she said. "Is Emily okay?" her mother asked, panic rising. "She's safe for now. But you need to come." Dropping everything, Emily's mother raced to the school. Her hands trembled. Her mind spun with fear. What had happened to her daughter? She pushed through the classroom door, only to be led silently by Miss Ruth into an empty office, where a truth darker than anything she imagined awaited her. "Do you know what time Emily gets to school?" Miss Ruth asked calmly. "She leaves home around 7:15, Emily's mother replied. "She doesn't arrive until 8:30, Miss Ruth said, her voice trembling. "And every day, she's crying." She paused, then took a deep breath. "Today, I asked her why. She said the Okada man takes her to his house and hurts her." Emily's mother felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. "No," she gasped. "She's only 6. Tears streamed down her face. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't believe it. But it was true. When Emily's father heard the news, he didn't cry, he roared. He punched the wall so hard his knuckles bled. "I will kill him with my own hands," he screamed. It took the coming presence of his sister, Auntie Ife, to hold him back. "Don't do anything rash," she pleaded. "We need to follow the law." But how do you tell a father not to burn down the world after hearing his daughter was violated by someone he trusted? His heart broke that day, but his fire for justice had only begun to burn. Together, they went to the police. Every detail Emily shared was written down. With her tiny hand, she pointed out the Okada man's house. He was arrested that same day, protesting his innocence, but the evidence was already mounting. The officers promised to take the case seriously. Emily's mother cried silently, holding Emily's hand as they left the station. Justice had begun, but the road would be long and painful. At the hospital, Emily was examined gently but thoroughly. A police form allowed the doctors to run their tests. The results were heartbreaking. There were signs of repeated abuse. Emily's mother collapsed in the waiting room, sobbing uncontrollably. Emily's father stood motionless, fist clenched, lips tight. They had failed their little girl. But now they were determined to do everything to help her heal. The trial began weeks later. Emily gave her statement through a child psychologist. Miss Ruth testified too. The Okada man stood in the dock, expressionless, but the mountain of evidence drowned his denials. The judge's voice rang clear, "Guilty. Sentenced to 20 years imprisonment without parole." There were no cheers. Just tears. The monster was caged. But Emily's pain still walked free. Even with him behind bars, Emily wasn't free. At night, she still cried. She avoided mirrors and locked bathroom doors. Her mother tried everything, singing, bedtime stories, extra hugs. Emily's father blamed himself quietly, often staring blankly at old photos of Emily's happier days. The whole family was grieving, not just the abuse, but the loss of peace, of normalcy, and of trust. Emily started therapy. Through play and drawings, she began to express the pain she couldn't say aloud. She drew monsters on fire, and then, one day, she drew herself flying. Her therapist smiled. "She's starting to find her strength," she said. Emily's parents attended sessions too, learning how to listen, how to comfort without smothering, how to let her guide her healing. Slowly, something shifted. Emily's mother couldn't stay silent. She started talking to other mothers, warning them about blind trust. She joined a local women's group and shared Emily's story, not to shock, but to educate. "Check who you leave your children with," she said. "Teach your daughters to speak up. Don't be too busy to listen." Her pain had turned into purpose. Emily's father joined a local fatherhood initiative. He went from school to school, speaking to men about protecting their daughters. "Your job doesn't end at providing," he said. "You must be present. You must protect." His voice cracked when he shared Emily's story, but he didn't stop. He was a man on a mission to make sure no other father would cry the way he did. Emily began to smile again. She made a new friend in class. She painted pictures of flowers and sunshine. One day, she ran into the living room laughing, shouting, "I beat everyone in math today." It wasn't just a win in school, it was a victory over darkness. Her laughter brought tears to her mother's eyes. The light had returned. Faint, but real. Miss Ruth was honored by the community, but she remained humble. "I just listened," she said. "Every teacher should." But everyone knew it was her courage that saved Emily. She continued watching over her students like a hawk, listening to silences as much as words. She had become a quiet hero, and she inspired others to be the same. Trust had been broken, but not destroyed. Emily now knew her parents would believe her, no matter what. They taught her body autonomy, how to say no, and to report anything strange. Emily's mother changed her job so she could walk Emily to school every day. Emily's father adjusted his work schedule to pick her up. It wasn't just about transportation anymore, it was about presence. Emily's mother posted Emily's story on a parenting forum, anonymously. It went viral. Thousands of parents reached out, saying they'd started asking questions, being more present, talking openly with their kids. Her inbox flooded with gratitude and shared stories of pain. Her voice was making a difference. She had turned her family's deepest wound into a beacon. On her 7th birthday, Emily made a wish. "I want all children to be safe," she said before blowing out her candle. The room went silent. Then her father scooped her up and said, "And we'll make that happen, my Emily." The house rang with laughter, hugs, and new hope. The past would always be a scar, but the future now held promise. This story isn't just about Emily. It's about every child. It's about listening, watching, and trusting your instincts. The biggest mistake is assuming it can't happen to me. It can. And it does. So be present. Ask questions. Check routines. Teach your children to speak. And above all, believe them when they do. Because behind every silent child could be a story waiting to be heard. Don't wait until it's too late. This is a call to all parents. Protect your children with everything you have.